All right. Hi, everyone. We're live. Welcome. And I'm very happy to connect with you as always. It's a pleasure. Yeah, great. So, first of all, um, tomorrow. Oh, I didn't. Oops. I have myself in my ears. Oh, that's why. Okay, that's fine. um, So, first of all, tomorrow I'm doing a sound bath. It's gonna be during the day, probably so around 4 p.m. my time, which is 9 a.m. Central Time in the US. Well, anyway, you'll be able to see that. You can check my Patreon and my website, breakfastwithmax.com. And so let's get into this one. So, oh, hi, Roxy. Let's get into this one. So I don't know if you know, recently on Amazon Prime, there is this show called The Rings of Power. Finished last Friday, I think. The last episode was up for viewing, and the least we can say that it was horrible. It didn't went the way they wanted it to go. But anyway, and it's not the first time there is an adaptation of Tolkien's work. Everyone knows, and a lot of people love the trilogy, the first three movies, the Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and the Return of the King, which mirror, if not in the story, at least in the titles, the three books from Tolkien. Okay, here is the thing where I wanted to go. Beside talking about, I'll talk probably something about the Rings of Power, but what I want to go into is more using that. So to go into Tolkien, who's Tolkien and his work, and why is it so interesting, and why people react so strongly to something like the Rings of Power when Amazon fucked up completely what they were doing, because they fucked up, and I'm going to tell you exactly why they did fucked up and why there is such a strong reaction. It's not just that the work is really not good. It's the vibration, or it's the relationship. It's what Tolkien did that is making this so special, because there is a relationship, a very strong relationship with this Middle Earth and with what this story is. Right? The first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that the books, so Middle Earth, the books, Tolkien's work, are considered as fantasy. It's not fantasy. Tolkien did not invent Middle Earth, or let's say, did it invent it, it created it, or whatever. It doesn't matter, actually. The fact is that Tolkien is describing something that is real. That word, that Middle Earth, is real. There is a Middle Earth. Now, that goes with the vision that we have of Earth. We generally, in our reality, we think that you go in space, you look, there is a planet Earth, it's a sphere, and with 5 continents and 8 billion people living on that Earth, and that's exactly what we have, right? That's Earth. Well, that's not Earth. That's your interpretation of Earth, or our interpretation of Earth. That's all it is. That's not Earth, though. That's not Gaia. Gaia is much bigger than that. There is much more to Gaia than what we perceive. That sphere that we call Earth, it's a limitation because it's only what human beings perceive, or what we perceive in our reality. Tolkien describes something in his work, and it's called the unseen world, right? It's that where the Nat school are, right? Or also he says that the elf have a physical representation, but also they have a representation in the unseen world, right? There is all that. What is seen and what is not seen. Well, that's exactly what Earth is. Our reality is there is what we see because what? There is a vibrational match. I can see everything that is related to my vibrational match because I'm creating it, but it's also because there is a vibrational match. But there are on Earth many other places, we can call them realm, like Middle Earth, that exist, but that we cannot see. That's also the unseen world. Why can we not see it? Because it's not vibrating in a way that we can perceive it. Where is it? Because you say, well, physically Earth is there. We have the 5 continents. We have the oceans where Earth is all covered, right? It's not there. You can go and look for it. You will not find it because it's not physical. It's not in that physicality. What we perceive, what we can connect as Earth, and that we can travel. Yeah, you can go and make or around Earth, yeah, that's great. That's your physicality, and it will be absolutely confirmed that's Earth. But there's the unseen, what we cannot see, what is still Earth, but not our match vibrationally. And we can go there through maybe some portals or some other ways in the dream state. We can go there, we can connect, exchange with those that are living there. The elf are living in the unseen world. Yeah, they are living there. And I'm saying unseen word in a very large way, and I'm not using it with the connotation of evil, good, or whatever. There is nothing like that. That's an interpretation, by the way, but there is nothing like that in the unseen world. The unseen world is unseen because we cannot see it with our eyes. That's the only reason why it's called unseen world. Because I'm calling that. So, and who's living there? Well, the fae, or the fairy, they are living here. The elves are part of the fae, of the fairies. It's one species that is part of that. You and then you have the gnomes. You have pixies. You have the all the dragons. You have also many species of, let's say, of humans that were part of the humans, but that have transcended it. They are also in. They have ascended into a new vibration. You can find there people like the druids, um, etc., etc. There are many, many dragons. Yeah, did I say that? Dragons are in the unseen world. They are not a fantasy. They are real. Absolutely unicorns. They are in the unseen world. They exist and they are in the unseen world, etc., etc. So Tolkien connected with that. He was able to channel that we cannot see. And so that the story of the Lord of the Ring is a story that is real, happening on a other version or parallel version, or another vibrational Earth. It's still here. It's still Earth. It's not somewhere else. It's here, except that the vibration is different. So Earth is completely different. I know that Tolkien presents the Middle Earth in the book as the predecessor of this Earth, and it's not completely wrong. However, it's like more of something different. It's a Middle Earth that still exists and that has a human presence, and that is um, or another presence, another evolution, because as you can relate to, right, the Middle Earth humans come from Numenor mainly, right? The Numenorian came back from Numenor and they populated. And at the end of the Lord of the Ring, they are the only one remaining because every other species is fading away. It's not that they disappear or that they are killed or that they are not there anymore. It's just that they fade away. So they change vibration. And this is something that is very important to understand. All the Lord of the Ring and the elves and the undying lands, right? It's vibration. That's all that is. And in order to be able to be in a place or to go to a place, you have to have a vibrational match. The elves have a vibrational match with the Undying Lands, so that's why they can go to the Undying Land. However, to leave Middle Earth and to go to the Undying Lands, they have to change their vibration so that they can match the vibration of the Undying Land. And that's what happens with the ships. They take the ships and the travel with the ships to go to the Undying Lands in the travel of vibration. That's where the vibration changes so that they are able to go and have that match. So, what is Tolkien's work? Tolkien's work is channeling. Some know what channeling is, others don't. Channeling is the interpretation of energy and translating it into human words. So the work of Tolkien, so many, and where do you find channeling? Well, channeling is something that great actors do. They channel their character. It's they become, right, the character, but it's that they're channeling it. They may not be aware of being channeling, but they are. They absolutely are. And the best channeling work they do, the best acting work they do. Other channeling is the channeling of extra-dimensional beings, and there are many great channelers out there that are doing this job, this work, and bringing wisdom and exchanges, messages, etc., that come from ETs or other species, but also from other beings that are living on Earth, but in the unseen world. So there are many. So it can be from fairies, or from I have connections with nagas, etc. Many beings. And so, what is channeling when you're writing a book? Well, when you are writing a book, you have a story, right? You tell a story, and and it's obvious with Tolkien, because Tolkien did not just write these 3 books. He wrote the whole story of Middle Earth, from the creation to the end of the Third Age. So detailed, with languages. The languages that Tolkien created for the Lord of the Rings and all of that, they're channeled too, and they are real languages used on Middle Earth. He did invent them. It's not just that he invented them; he channeled them. So when you talk the Elfish languages, Quenya, or it's real that those languages are used by those elves. So we're facing something that is real. That is mainly what I'm saying. So when you understand that Tolkien is giving it gave us reality and not just an invention or what they call fantasy, well, you can understand that there is a connection at the level of our consciousness. There is a huge connection with those those books, with that work, that brings us then to a reactions that we have when these works are not treated correctly, when the characters are not treated correctly, because that means that the characters that are in the beings, the species that are in Tolkien's work, they are real. The hobbits, they do exist. The elves that are described there, they do exist. The Numenor as a place, but the Numenorians, absolutely, they do exist. They are real. When Tolkien describes the Numenorians as being 8 feet tall, or the elves also 8 feet tall, so from our perspective, they are giants, because they have at least, depending, it's nearly can go to 3 feet, 2.5 feet taller than what we generally are. So they are huge. And so probably the hobbits are more like us then, or the dwarf. Yeah, I said the gnomes. Yeah, the dwarf. Yeah, the dwarf are more like us, for instance, right? Maybe. And then next to these beings that are 8 feet tall, so 2.5 meters. So there you say, well, yeah, the dwarf, if you're 180 or 170, you are a dwarf next to those people, right? They are looking down to you, of course. But anyway, so Frodo, Galadriel, and Aragorn, Thanator, all of those guys, all of those people, Elrond, right? They're real people. They're real elves. They are real. They do exist. So, yeah, you understand? When they take these characters and they use these characters in movies or in TV shows, and they're butchered, they, they, they execute them in such a way that they are killing those characters, then there is a reaction. Many people have reactions based right on the collective. We are all connected, not just on Earth as humans. We're all connected. Every being that is related to Gaia is connected. So we're all part of that. So that there is a reaction to that. So it's not surprising that the Rings of Power is awakening very strong reactions by many people. And I've watched the first 2 episodes and then I stopped, and I watched people talking about them, and it was very fascinating because I really was able. But for me to watch that is that I'm analyzing the emotions, the reactions, watching that, and so that it can gives me an idea in relation with me when I'm doing this, when I'm talking here on YouTube, right? Coming here and talking, and so that I have an idea how emotionals and how it comes through and how it is, and this, as it's very emotional for some people, especially. It was very interesting, but also because it gave me an opportunity to have an idea of what the show was presenting, even though I had I already knew before, but I was not surprised by what happened. What is interesting is that it's the reaction that I witness is really very emotional. So, which goes with what I'm saying is that there is a relationship with this because it's reality, it's real. So, when you go and watch The Rings of Power and you see Galadriel being executed, being killed as a character, they killed Galadriel is a character. At the end of episode 8, Galadriel is guilty of the evil that we see on the Lord of the Rings. She's the reason that Sauron becomes what Sauron is in the Lord of the Ring. She's the reason why there is the One Ring, why there are the other rings, and all of that, which is not the character, right? And so there you see the difference between channeling. So Tolkien channeled the Lord of the Rings, channeled all the stories, all the character, and then he went into channeling the details. Where did this character come from? Why are they? What are they? What's the backstory, etc., etc. So he had a very good idea, but also there is that's one of the reasons why a character like Galadriel changed over time, or she was not really there in the beginning, then suddenly Galadriel became much more of a center figure because she is helping and being part of this adventure in in the Lord of the Ring. But her really being there was developed by Tolkien quite just afterwards, when he was able to connect with Galadriel and with this figure, with this being, that when you take and you read the Silmarillion, for instance, Galadriel is quite not there. Sure, she's there, but she spent time with Megan in Meyer, right? The most powerful Meyer that comes to Middle Earth, and that interact. She's there for thousands of years, and absolutely amazing magic that the Melior does, but and Galadriel learns from her, and these are information that we receive, and it's in let me see, it's in the first age, right? Yeah, it's in the first age that happens, because Galadriel is there already in the first age. But she has, that's one of the information that we receive, and the other information is about her being married with her husband, that she meets when she's staying with Melior, right? I think it's there that she meets him. So it's already in the first age that she is already married and has a daughter. Then the character of Galadriel was extended afterwards with more information about her movements. But but why, and also what is said, that there isn't just one version of Galadriel, there may be many versions, but that's normal. Channeling is bringing information, and you connect with different versions of beings, because we are infinite beings. So when Tolkien channels information about someone like Galadriel, he may receive different information, because there isn't just one version of Galadriel. Then the work of Tolkien is to define which information is the information that is related to his work, right? And for such a being, because Galadriel is the most powerful elf present, right? We can talk like this: the most powerful elf in Middle Earth, in the Third Age. By far, no one is as powerful in magic, in wisdom, in experience. And she is a elf that was born under the light of the trees. So, and in the Third Age, there are maybe a couple of elves that have seen the trees. So the trees are when in the mythology of Tolkien, when Earth was created, it was flat, first of all, and it was created without light. It was a place that the Valar had to go and do things with. Right? They had to come and see that things were working, etc., etc. So the Valar created the two trees, and these two trees were the source of light before the First Age. The First Age started when the moon and the sun were created, and they were the sun and the sun and the moon were created when after Melchior, the bad guy, the bad Valor, um, killed the two trees, right? And from the remaining of the two trees, they were able then to have the last two fruits from each trees, and from the last two fruits from the two trees, the Valor created the sun and the moon. And the moment that the first was the moon, and 1 week later the sun, and they were in the sky, and a Meyer each were carrying them around, and that was the new light. But the first light was the light of the trees. And the elf that went to the Undying Land and saw directly the trees, the light of the trees, are right. I consider as, let's say, the blessed one, or the one that, though I'm just not remembering exactly if they are how they are called, but they are those that saw the trees are, let's say, apart. The elves that refuse to go to the Undying Land are, as said, the dark elves, not because they are dark in the sense bad, or working or being with bad guys. It's dark because they didn't see the light of the trees. That's how important the trees are. But then, so Galadriel is one of those elves. So where are those elves? They left Middle Earth. They left Middle Earth through at the end of the First Age, because that's when Melchior was finally apprehended and put in the void, up until the end of ages, where, well, something like uh, the end of the world, and then the reconstruction of the world will happen, something like that. But anyway, at the end of the First Age, Melchior is finally defeated by the Valors, and so captured, put in the void, and at that point, the Valor give the opportunity to every remaining elf in Middle Earth to go back, or to go for the first time, for those that never went there, but to go to the Undying Land. And Galadriel is one of the few that refuses to go, because she isn't done yet. Her ambition is to have what to she has the ambition to lead, to be the head of a land, or people, so to command, right? And she hasn't done that yet the way she wants to, so she remains. Another that remain is Elrond. Yeah, Elrond decides to remain, and a couple of others, and some other, yeah. But anyway, Galadriel is at that point, as everyone else died, and again, the elves do not die. They just lose their body. They leave their body. They go back in Oh, what's the name of the Valor now? Let's say what we'll say. Hmm, I have to check. No, can't find the name. But they go and they stay for some time in some sort of limbo or paradise or whatever you want to call it, to recover. And once they recover, they get a new body, so they reincarnate. Because uh, the fact of being present in the unseen world and in the physical world, let's say, is that the physical world is a incarnation for them. And so if the incarnation is the physical body is attended, is killed, or if even if they do not need to be killed physically, so have anything that they can leave their body when they are in a situation where they're going nowhere. So that's the elf. That's why many things that are presented in the rings of power doesn't make sense. I'll come to that later. So these are the elves, and Galadriel is the eldest by far present in the third age in Middle Earth, and she goes back as an older to the time when they were living in the Undying War, or in Undying Lands. So you have to figure that Galadriel is a character that when it comes to the Second Age, which is what Rings of Power is about, the Second Age, you have to imagine that already in the Second Age, Galadriel is the eldest present there, because everyone has left at the end of the first age. What is the end of the first age? Is the moment Melchior is defeated. When Melchior is defeated, the father says, "Well, now, elf, you can come back with us in the Undying Land. We pardon you." Why did they pardon them? Because because when Melkor killed Chithris, he also stole the Silmarillion. The three the three Silmarillions that were created with the light of the trees. And Melkor stole these three Silmarillions, and Fëanor, the one that created them at that moment, he created a complete huge drama, and with his family and all the many elves, part of his family or related, or the Noldors, right? He brought them back to Middle Earth, which means, and by doing that, they made a promise. And one thing that is in Tolkien, a promise is a promise, and generally it's a bad thing. Anyway, and it was a solemn promise to recuperate, to take back these Silmarillions from Melkor, or anybody or anyone else that may have a hand of them by any mean. So him or his sons had to do that, and they all swore about that. So that's the moment the elves that had seen the light of the trees came back to Middle Earth. So that's why they were there. That's why they were on war against Melkor. And obviously Melkor, the most powerful being on Ada. By far, no one as powerful as him. So it was not a fight that a war that the elf could win by that like that. So it's a war that goes for thousands of years, which is all the first age is about. Is this fight? Is all about the Silmarillion's, and so that's how far Galadriel goes. Galadriel was born in the Undying, and then that's the moment she leaves the Undying and comes to Middle Earth. So you see, it's a very, very old character by far, by all standards, because everyone else that is interacting with her as an elf in the second and third age, they all were not in there in the Undying Land. They were all born afterwards on Middle Earth. For instance, Elrond was born where far thousand or years after Galadriel, right? So you see, that is the character Galadriel. She has history, and I'm just condensing a lot here. It's just to convey this idea, to make you understand that the character Galadriel has history. She has a lot. Before the second age starts, she's already thousands of years old. And so when it comes to the Rings of Power, the character that is presented there has nothing to do, right? It's a child. It's a completely idiot and someone that has absolutely no understanding of anything, and that fucked up everything that she does. She fucked it up completely. She is unable to interact with anyone. She's presented at the end she's always right. No, she's not. She's just fucking it up and treating everyone, manipulating everyone, etc., etc. And you know, as I was saying, this is a character that has already thousands of years of age. She learned magic. She's able already to do magic at that point. She doesn't need, as you know, in the ring, in the Lord of the Rings, Galadriel has one of the rings of power, and that makes her very powerful. The thing is that Galadriel didn't need the ring to be powerful. She learned magic with one of the most powerful Maiars. So she's already powerful before the rings are forged. So when you see this being that is supposed to be like that at the beginning of these rings of power, and you see that there is nothing of that in that character, then you already know they're fucking it up. And that's where you see, we come to what back to what I was saying, is that there is an investment, an emotional investment that we have with all of this work from Tolkien, right? Tolkien did an amazing job, and this character that he wrote, they are, as I said, they are real people, they're real elves. So when you have someone and someone that absolutely understands nothing, know nothing, has studied nothing, has channeled nothing, has absolutely nothing to do with this, they come in and they write a character like Galadriel, and they create a character assassination. Obviously, people react to that. They go into a emotional reaction, and that's what was happening there with so many people that were not happy with well, all the stuff, but especially when seeing a character like Galadriel being that absolutely terrible, awful being that was portrayed there, they lost it. And I can absolutely understand it, without forgetting all the nonsense written in there, sending the, the shifts. So um, the elves, in order to go back to the Undying Land, they had shifts, but ships. But these ships were controlled by one elf, and generally the elves were going there and taking these ships to go back to the Undying Lands. So there's a structure, and there is no control actually around that. Is that the Valar are saying you can come back, but for instance, Galadriel, she refused at the end of the first age to go back. She refused, so she was banned, and she was banned from going back to the Undying Land. So she is accepted back in the Undying Land, so she can take the ship at the end of the third age, and that is allowed to her when she refuses the One Ring, when she resists the temptation. That's when the Valar says, "You now can come back. We accept you." Because her pride, her ambition that had prevented her to accept to go back to the Undying Land at the end of the first age, she proved that she had passed that. She was done with that. And so as the Valars are really watching, she's allowed to go back. That's her story. And all of this was, if you look, the rings of power, all of this is destroyed in what they show, because they even show Galadriel being tempted to gain power through Sauron in the 8th episode. Which then one asks, well, but then why not send them back at that point? Because she resisted Sauron. She didn't just resist the ring, because in the third age, when Frodo gives her, says, "You want the ring? Here is the ring. I give it to you freely, and by my own decision, take the ring." He was offering the ring. In what they show in episode 8 is Sauron himself that is tempting Galadriel. Then she refuses. Her character arc is finished at the end of episode 8. She can go back to the Undying Land. There is that the rest of the 3,000 or 5,000 years that she is supposed to stay in Middle Earth have no sense anymore for her. She had already her character arc. It's finished. You see, storytelling, writing something like Tolkien did, he knew exactly what he was doing. He studied, he channeled, he had all the stuff that he needed. That's why it's a great work. Here you have someone that is taken out of I don't know where, that has no experience, that is just an egotistical piece of shit, that comes there and say, oh yeah, I know everything, I can do everything, let me do this, you'll see I make something great. And you take these two, and they are two, not just one, two of them, and they put them as um and you have them and you say and they say, well, we're going to do this and now you'll see, we're going to do something great. But these people have absolutely no idea, because again, you take the work of Tolkien channeled it and did a great job in channeling and in bringing a real story and creating books about it, not the three books, but also then much more, right? And all of that is an universe. And I will come back to what is, we can say, what precede the Lord of the Ring, because that's very interesting. I've received some information about that that is very interesting, but I come to that later. But you see, that is the problem with this, is that these people have butchered, they have assassinated what they were doing. Their work doesn't go because they were arrogant. They were doing it for probably the wrong reason, let's say, but they were arrogant. They were egotistical. They put their ego into it, pretending that they know better. Talking himself, and you cannot do that in that way. When, right, we are creator beings, we do create, and Tolkien created such amazing work. It's not just the channeling, then he also wrote it, and his writing is amazing, so it's so great. So you see, that is something. Then there is someone that comes and say, oh, I'll take that and I do something with that, but they do it based on their ego, in pretending that they can do better than, and they change the story, they change the characters, and the result is that it doesn't work. And all the story of these 8 episodes, it's not just that they are not well done, they are absolutely terrible written, one of the worst writing I have ever seen. The dialogues are making no sense. The actions are making no sense. What happened doesn't make sense. I mean, and people say, oh, it's fantasy. You have to accept that when a volcano explodes and you have all the explosion hitting the humans and the elf, no one dies. It's fantasy. It's okay. No, it's not like that. That's bad writing. My question there is, but then why would you put your characters in that situation? Why do you write a story where your character, Galadriel, is sent back in the Undying Land, that is thousands of miles away from Middle Earth, and you make her jump in the ocean, and she has to swim thousands. She has to what is she have to swim for thousands of miles back to Middle Earth. Why would you write such nonsense? Why would you put your character in there? Oh, because you want her to go to Numenor, but then send her directly to Numenor. Isn't that easier? But you wanted her to meet Sauron in the middle of the ocean, Sauron was there probably waiting for her because Sauron knew that Galadriel would jump from the ship. Oh! Bad writing by shit writers, by shit ego, by people that don't know what you're doing, right? So you see, that created reactions, terrible reactions like that, right? Emotional react, like what I just expressed there. Why? Because there is it's a behavior that goes against. It's creating what? It's creating duality. Lackful behavior received with lack. And so that goes into all of that drama that has been presented all along here by many people reacting and going completely crazy. I've seen people reacting to to these rings of power, going into they are presenting a woke. I don't know what woke is, but it's a bullshit stuff. Woke. There is no woke. It's completely stupid, but woke thing. It's not woke. Or feminist. It's not feminist. Women are put like better than men, right? Reacting to that aspect that may or may not be what they wanted to do, but it's just the interpretation. It's you interpret things the way you want you want to interpret them, because you have a relationship with your belief systems and you believe stuff. So when you are presented with a whatever you watch on TV or on a show or on whatever, you have your belief system coming in, and so you interpret it. And so when you are presented with something, you react emotional to that. So they had this stuff of these people being so they were interpreting it as feminist, and the women characters are presented better than the men, and the white male is always the one that is wrong, and blah blah blah, right? These kind of things, and they were getting crazy about that. And it's like, okay, you're seeing that, I understand it, but then what does that shows me? It shows me about you. It doesn't about them. It doesn't show me about the show, because that may or may not be there. It's even irrelevant, or it's their interpretation, but they're interpreting that. Why? Because they have themselves, that in themselves. That's where you see the mirror. That's where you see that someone is going to like or dislike something based on what they feel, what they have as belief system. So that if a strong female character is a problem for someone, is that they have a problem with women in general, themselves. Because what can a strong female character in a TV show do to you? Nothing. It's just a TV show. That character is doing nothing to you. But when you see people reacting, getting crazy because they have this, you say, oh, all right, okay, I understand. I understand where you come from. But for me, what is more there is the fact that I have as I said before, I have a character that behaves in a completely idiotic way. She's sent on a ship to go back to the Undying Land, thousands of miles away. And when she is there to access it, she jumped the ocean. And she has to swim thousands of kilometers of miles. And then in episode 8, she said, oh, I didn't think about it. Let's just jump in. And then I just swam back. And he said, really? Honey, you will not survive it. You'll die. But then one could say, yeah, she's an elf. She cannot die. So she'll go just back to Mendes for a while. Mendes, there. Mendes. Mendes is the one that welcomes, let's say, the spirit or the disembodied elves. And they stay with Mendes in his place, right? The elves that lose their bodies go there. Mendes. Anyway, so you see bad writing because these people don't know what they're doing. They have a relationship of ego, of money, of not understanding what they're doing. And so they present something and they think that they're clever, that they are intelligent, and that they have done a great job. No, they didn't. And as things are right now with these people and in this configuration, season 2 is gonna be exactly the same thing, the same drama, the same stuff, and yeah, just drama and just egos and then people reacting to that and just going crazy. That's all it's gonna be like season 1. There is no reason for being different. And you can see that when you have corporations that think that they can take work that is real. And by the way, Tolkien is not the only one that does that. There is Frank Herbert with the Dune series. Dune is real. The Star Wars is real too. At least the first trilogy, right? Then what they've done afterwards with maybe even episode 1, 2, and 3 could be considered not that bad from the point of view of channeling the work. I think they came with they used the idea that they already had, so it was not really done in that moment. But everything done after that, forget it. It's just bullshit because a corporation came in, took the work, and wanting to make money, they created bullshit. They butchered everything. They butchered the characters assassinations. That's what this corporation do. And why? Because they only have one thing, one idea, and that is money. And I want just to say the fact that there is money involved is not in itself a bad thing. Absolutely, money is neither good nor bad. It's just money. The problem is that human beings do what? They get greedy and they go into lack. So they are creating work out of lack because they want money, right? They don't need to want money. If you do a job like it was done with the first trilogy of Star Wars, I mean, they made money. They made a lot of money with those 3 movies, and those 3 movies were not done with the greedy idea that came afterwards. So you see, you can make a lot of money and you do not need to have the greedy money making idea in that, and so it works. But when you get the thing of wanting to do money the way they want to do money with greedy, and you can have, I mean, the first I don't know the title now, but the first Disney Star Wars movie, it was she made absolutely a lot of money. But then you see that people saw what that was, and the next did less, and the next less, and the next less, because it was, people realized this is bullshit. And lack is lackful, so lack is full of something, full of lack, but full of something, right? There is something in lack. And so it's not that you don't do money because you are lackful, but it's that you are not allowing it to be as successful, as abundant as it could be, because you are greedy, because you are in lack. It's essential to see the difference between something that is not lack, like the first Star Wars movie, and something that is completely lack, like the movie that have the last movies. And then you see how the revenues decrease, the quality decrease, the reception from people decrease. Look at the Lord of the Rings movie, the first trilogy. The first trilogy was unexpected. It was a surprise. No one was expecting it to be anyway good, but to go anywhere. No one expected Tolkien to be possible to translate it into another media. Tolkien itself was saying, it's not possible. But they did it. And they did it with no idea of really having the money success that they had, right? They couldn't have that. Even if they invested so much money into it, they could be expecting to make the money back, but with some profit probably, but making the money that they did, they couldn't possibly imagine that to be possible. But the movie are great. They're really great, because you can see that these people had a respect and a sort of understanding of Tolkien, so that they adapted it, even if they changed the story. And that's where I have a problem with those movies, is with the story, but especially the second one. But that is details, because if you just take the movies as they are and they watch them, and you let go what is think of, you can say, well, Lord of the Rings, the story as written by Tolkien is exactly how it goes. If you change anything essential in there, then it cannot end with the destruction of the ring. And that's the problem I have with the second movie. The second movie changes essential things, that changes the story, and in that, and the point where I say it, then you then have to force the story. It's when Faramir brings Frodo and the ring to Osgiliath, I think it's Osgiliath, and changing the character of Faramir, being much more like his brother. And at that point, I say, well, at that point, Faramir takes the ring and brings it back to his father. That's the way the Two Towers should end. Faramir takes the ring for himself and goes back to his father. That's the real end of the Two Towers. It didn't end like that because they forced the story. But Faramir is a piece of shit, and with more power hungry, and that's what the ring uses to corrupt people. So in that at that moment, Faramir falls like his brother. Whereas the Faramir in the book is a Faramir that is not power hungry and is not seeking power, doesn't want power, doesn't need power. So that Faramir, in that way, if as a human being, he will be open to corruption from the ring, but as he is not interested at all, Faramir just say, I don't care, I don't want it, I don't absolutely have any interest in it, bye, go. Right? That's the Faramir in the book. But the Faramir in the movies is not that Faramir. He's another being completely. And he has the ring there. He knows it, the ring is there. That Faramir takes the ring 100%, no discussion. So the fact that Faramir decides to let go the ring, that is not possible. Right? So that's where I have a problem with the story. They had to force that aspect. They had to force the Faramir let go of Frodo and of the ring. That's the way I see it. That's my interpretation. But I mean, the ring is corruption, and anyone that is seeking power is corrupted by the ring. And the ring is seeking what? To go back to his master. So in that moment, Faramir will be his target. It's clear. For me, it's clear at least. So that's the only thing where I say that's a problem in the trilogy. That moment is the moment that will destroy the journey. But we know Lord of the Rings ends with the destruction of the ring. So anyway, but beside that, if you just make an abstraction of that, the thing is that these three movies are a masterpiece in themselves. I'll have really, as I said, the two towers, not really there, but doesn't matter. There you go. Whereas the fellowship of the fellowship of the rings, that's amazing, and you see that's where they changed a lot to do the fellowship of the ring, but I have absolutely no problem with that, because the fellowship of the ring is the best one of the three, and it works, it goes, it's fantastic, and even if they changed, still the story goes, it works amazingly. So it's not the fact of being absolutely faithful. So there is room to change and to tell a story that is different from the book, as it's not possible to do it in any other way, changing the media. But it works. Two Towers, and then the Return of the King. Well, it's I love watching it. It's great, but my favorite is the Fellowship of the Ring, to be honest. And anyway, and there is another thing, is that there's a parallel between what Tolkien is describing at the end of The Lord of the Ring, which is all the elf finally leaving, and that's what we experience. All the fairy have left because there were conflicts, because they were killing, there were horrible things that were done, because the humans were not accepting or were fearful of sharing the reality with the fairies. So there were conflict. So they ended up leaving, included the elves. And by the way, I exchange and I have a elf living, let's say living in this environment, close by, Well, as I said, it's vibration. We interact. We're existing, and they exist, and they vibrate differently from us, so we cannot see them, but we can interact. And so I've seen a elf was just outside my window in the park, maybe what 10. What will that be? I'm 170. It's 5'4". 20 feet, 20 feet away from here. So it was very close by, and so they're not far away. If you want, in that idea, we can interact with the fairies, with the elves, um, with all of them very easily. So this is what I'm saying. It's not fantasy, it's real. And even though Middle Earth is not this version of Earth, is another version of Earth, or is another realm on Earth, or is another vibration of Earth, it's still this Earth. So we could go to Middle Earth. It's possible. It's not impossible. It's possible. It's just unlikely because it's another vibration completely, so it will be very difficult for us to do that. But then the question will be, why would you do that? You don't need. You are here. Stay here. And probably, to be honest, you have certainly a version of you, a you that is already on Middle Earth. So you do not need to want to have you going there. You are already there. So the other things that I wanted to say about Tolkien's work and his channeling of it is related to the Silmarillion, right? All that work that is telling of the creation of Arda, and then coming to the creation of the trees, then the creation of the Silmarillion, the stealing of them, the war between Melkor and the elves, the capture of Melkor, and then all the Second Age. The Second Age is the creation of Numenor as a let's say rewarding for the humans that were helping the Valar in the war against Melkor. They were rewarded with the creation of Numenor. Numenor that existed for 2,000 years, if I remember correctly. And then the destruction of Numenor with the intervention of Sauron. Sauron using the jealousy and the misunderstanding of the gift of Louis Vuitton to the humans, that is the death. It's described as a gift. And the humans, the Numenorians, were not understanding that. They were, after 2,000 years, they were doubting that death is a gift, and they were saying, why do we die and the elf don't die? Why would we be rewarded or given a gift of death? And so Sauron uses that to manipulate the Numenorians, and the Numenorians go to war against the Valar, and that's when Louis Vuitton destroys Numenor. And in the destruction of Numenor, then Arda becomes a sphere. That's when, because before that, Arda was flat, and that's when it becomes a sphere. So then we come to, and also that's when Sauron loses for the first time his body, and his ability to shifting, and then back to Middle Earth, and then there's the creation. Oh, sorry. The rings were created before the fall of Numenor. So, but anyway, the creation of all the rings, the fall of Numenor, and then the end of the Second Age with Sauron losing the ring, the One Ring, and then the Third Age with the fight of all the elves that are losing strength, the humans that are the raising race, the dwarf, and the hobbit, to destroy the ring and Sauron, right? So this is all presented in the Silmarillion, even though it's mainly the first age, to the end of the first age. Then the second age is an a chapter, and the third age is another chapter. So the most of the Silmarillion is about creation of Arna and the first age. Second age is quickly gone through. There is no really a lot of details, and the third age also, it's not very detailed, also because the third age is the Lord of the Rings. That's where there is the most of it, the end of it. But so this is the thing, and then there are obviously other books that details that give a lot of details and all of that. But when you take that and you observe that, what I notice is that not only Tolkien channeled this story, The Lord of the Rings, but by channeling all of that mythology, Tolkien clearly channeled what is a religion, what is a mythology that gives a religion, a belief system, and all of that. It's not a fantasy in that. It's absolutely real. We know that we have hundreds of thousands of religions. We experience many that don't last very long. We have some that last longer, like Christianism, Islam, Hebrew. Oh, that's a language. Anyway, Hinduism, etc., etc. Those last very long, but other appear and disappear very quickly. This that Tolkien gave us is clearly, for some, in some version of reality, it's a religion. So that's what he channeled, and it's not, again, it's not a fantasy, it's a reality. And in versions of reality, that's a religion, really, with our valors and all of that. They are real gods that are seen as God by the humans that know about that. And because when you know and you read those those books and what isn't in there, and the relationship right away, the creation, there is creationism in that work, right? The song of the Valar, the three version of the song, if you look into our mythology, what we have with the creation of the world, you see that that is exactly what it is. It's the creation of the world presented in a different way from what we have in Christianism or Hinduism or etc., right? In many representation of creation, but it's exactly that. So you see, that is what channeling can do. A aspect of channeling is that you take information that is out there, and Tolkien took that information, that energy, and he translated it and put it in 3 books, The Lord of the Rings, but also he put it in then going farther and bringing all the story from the creation of Arda to the destruction of the ring of power, right? Of the One Ring. But you see that there is not just that story, there is much more. Because even if the story of the Lord of the Ring is the destruction of this evil that Sauron represents, Sauron is a Maya. So he is a being that is linked to the creation of the world, because he was there at the creation of Arda in that way. So you see that there is a relationship with even with that. Sauron is not that. Is in the third age in that moment, in the moment of the Lord of the Rings story, the 3 books. He is if we forget about the rings, he is the most powerful being in Middle Earth in that moment, because everyone else has left. Even though we could discuss with Saruman and with Gandalf that are also Maiar, so they have, but the thing is that Sauron is stronger, and at least in the story, right? So the other aspect that I would like to take, because then this is what Tolkien channeled all of this story, and all of that he channeled is clearly presented in a duality and in a religious way, especially all the story of Arda creation, and then the Louis Vuitton and all of the two trees, and then the sun, the moon, and all of that, right? All of that has that aspect of creation and relationship with creation, point of view. Whose point of view is presented there? Well, clearly the point of view is the point of view of human. Why? Because it's a story that is told by a human. The human has is channeling, but the channeling then is the human experience. So Tolkien as a human is having a human experience, which is channeling a story, which is real, but still, he's not giving the point of view of the elves. He cannot give the point of view of the elves because he doesn't know the point of view of the elves, because he's not an elf. Which is also a problem that you can see in all the adaptation, all of them, is that less in the original trilogy, right? But even more afterwards, with now the Rings of Power, is that elves are presented as human. But at the same moment, how can a human interpret anyone else than through humans? So you have a humanization of those beings, where you see that they behave like humans, but they cannot behave like humans. For instance, the driving force that the Rings of Power give to Galadriel in what she does is the fact that Sauron killed her brother. But as someone very correctly told in a video, um, Galadriel's brother is not dead. He is not dead. So why would that be her driving force? Her brother is back in the Undying Land. Whether he is still in with yeah, I can't say that anymore. Whether he is still recovering or already reincarnated, she just need to take the ship and she can go back to her brother. So that cannot be her driving force. And more laughable is that in the 7th episode, finally we learn that her husband is missing. So probably we know he's not dead because he is in the Lord of the Rings, so he's there. He's not dead, but apparently he was lost in the Wars of Wrath. But he's not there because he's there. We know he's there in the Third Age. But there is the problem. We know that Galadriel loved her husband, and especially as someone said, elves marry for love. They cannot marry for anything else. They do marry for love. So Galadriel is attached in the elf way to her husband, but they don't talk about that until the 7th episode, and they present Galadriel as driven by revenge. But she doesn't want revenge for her husband. She only wants revenge for her brother. Because up until this episode 7, she doesn't talk even about her husband. And again, even that doesn't make sense. Why? Because even if her husband was dead, same thing. She only has to take the ship, go back to the Undying Land, and there they are. Elves are not being that die. So you see, you cannot write that is exactly what I'm talking about. You cannot write these elves the way you will write a human being. The revenge things work for a human being, doesn't work for elves. They don't die. Well, we don't die either. No. Except that we believe we die. It's a different story. Elves, no, they don't die. And they don't. We don't know we don't die. We go through the illusion of death. Or at least the living see other people dying. They never see themselves dying, but anyway, they see other people die. So death is the real, but we don't know what happens. Elves know that they are going to spend some time disembodied, but then they will be re-embodied, and then they don't die simply. And if they have a problem with their body, they just can leave that body and they will have another body. Or if they want, they don't need to have a body, by the way, because again, the Undying Land are not physical, so it's not a physical world. It cannot be physical. It's another vibration. So the elf exists in a different vibration. So and in that vibration, it's not the physical world that we know. It's not physical. It's something different. It's a different vibration. That is another mistake that is done. But again, that comes back to the fact that I was saying, Tolkien channels this word as a human being. So he only can give an interpretation as human. So it's a human point of view that he is giving. So all of this is presented from the point of view of the human. It's a human experience. And so the elves are presented through the interpretation of human. All of the duality, the conflict, all of that is presented from the point of view of human. The Valar, Louis Vuitton, right? These angelic or godlike beings are all presented from the point of view of human, and human has what? Religion. So that's why, to me, Tolkien is presenting a religion. It's very religion driven. But again, because it's an interpretation, it's the human experience, the human interpretation. So that when you see Tolkien's work in this way, and you realize, oh, first of all, is a channeled work. Clearly, cannot be in the other way. It's channeled. So that it's the representation of a reality. Then you go and you understand much better what is presented. That there is that it's real. So that then now you can see how channeling works. First of all, the channeling of all of this story, of all of this reality, with so much timeline, right? It's really ages, so thousands of years of reality that is presented by Tolkien. Then you can see how channeling has a filter. What is a filter here? The filter is that Tolkien is filtering all that reality that is channeling through his human personality, his belief systems. All of that present a filter. That's why certain things are presented in a certain way. That's why the elves are presented in a certain way. They have human characteristic. They may have human feelings, right? But it's because it's interpreted through human eyes, and that's the filter. So channeling presents a filter, and that is present in the Lord of the Rings, in the Silmarillion, and every other work that is about this Middle Earth from Tolkien. And then right, the religion point of view, it's a different religion from our Christianity. However, Tolkien was a believer, a Christian believer. So that is another filter that Tolkien uses in presenting many things in this work, in this reality, that he translates. So that's a filter. And that filter goes into what the orcs, for instance. The orcs are bad and evil, and so they are so ugly and all of that. Now I'm asking, were the orcs really ugly and terrible and evil? Or is that the interpretation that is given to the evil? Or the question, Melkor, Sauron, are they really bad in the way it is presented? Or is it that there is the interpretation of duality, the interpretation of a opposing, so there are the good, we have to have the bad. And Melkor is the bad, because Melkor is a different point of view than the rest of the Valar. But then if the Valar are the good ones, then Melkor has to be the bad one. If and Sauron too, right? Because Sauron is a lackey, he's a servant of Melkor. So then, yeah, their representation, the way you see them, must be through what human point of view. There is a darkness, there is something that is bad, and it's interpreting in that way. It can only be in that way. So the orcs can only be ugly and bad and terrible and doing terrible things. So they're represented in that way. But again, right, that comes back, filter. Darkness, creatures of darkness has to be ugly. They have to be dark. They have to be bad. They have to do those terrible things, right? But we know that duality is an illusion. We know that there is no good, there is no bad, there is only the interpretation of it. We interpret what is good, we interpret what is bad. So when Tolkien is channeling this story, he's interpreting. And my question is, are the orcs really ugly? Or is the fact that are considered as being the darkness or the bad beings in the story, then they have to be ugly, you see? So that becomes the interpretation of these beings. Again, that is how channeling works. When there are filters, and as there is no understanding of the filters, no understanding that that's what is happening, then the filters work completely so that, oh, this is a bad being, then it has to be ugly. It has to correspond to the idea of the channeler of what a dark creature looks like. So you see, channeling is exactly that. I'm receiving energy. I'm giving an interpretation of that energy, but am I able to give it pure? I can. However, I have filters. I have belief systems. I have a lot of stuff like that. So when I'm bringing into human words the interpretation of that energy, I will put all of that in there as a filter. So am I aware of that or am I not aware of that? If I am aware of that, then I am able to calibrate my filter so that it can be as tiny as possible, the tiniest possible. So that is my influence into the message is reduced to as little as possible. If I'm not aware, obviously I will put all of that there so that I will give associations as my belief system is. So again, bad, dark creature, oh, ugly, definitely, etc., etc. A lot of stuff like that. Mordor is a terrible place, ugly, and with no trees, with it, right? It's just a terrible place. Yeah, but that again is that the interpretation of where the darkness uh, is, that cannot be nature, because Tolkien is attached to the idea of nature. So to have the idea of having the Mordor where Sauron is, to be a place where there could be beauty, is not acceptable. So Mordor has to be a bad place, ugly, full of ugliness, and with no other life than the filthy life that is there. And I'm not saying that it's not like that. It is like that, but it's an interpretation of it that is given. And so um, for me, that is the interesting things about this work, is that there is a channeling, and then there is this channeling is given to us through these books, and then you see the interpretation, you see how much interpretation there is in that, and you can see that, you can discover that, and then you have other people trying to take that and put it into something different, and a different media, and then you can see that, and you can see up until what point they're able to understand that or not. And here you have the rings of power, and you clearly see they are not able. And Roxy was clear to me from the beginning. She said, vibrationally, this is a fucked up work. This is shit. Not watching it. And she was right. Because that is the recognition of the vibration. You know vibrationally exactly what that is. And it's a vibration. We are vibration. So when you have, and here you have this work done by people that are vibrating whatever, and you know, well, that's not the vibration of Tolkien's work, so it cannot be respectful of that work. It must be something different. Do I want that? No. Bye. Right? So there you go. And I wanted to convey this because I've heard many people talking about the rings of power, and they keep repeating, oh, it's fantasy, it's fantasy, it's fantasy. And it becomes an excuse for many to say, oh, I accept the bullshit in this because it's just fantasy. Well, no, it isn't. That's the point. It isn't. It's like taking your story, your character, and putting it into a story, and then someone takes that story and changes you completely. Something that is not new. And they make you do stuff that you will never do. But that's the ring of power. So it's not just fantasy. It's real. It cannot be anything else due to the characteristic of this work, due to the origin of this work. So there is that understanding, and that this is what I wanted to convey. And I think I will be talking about, I talk about now Tolkien. I'll do something like that with other work, like, well, Frank Herbert. That is my um, really think that Frank Herbert for me is at the level of writing that is superior. He channeled his work, obviously, but also the writing, the way he wrote Dune, and the way Dune can be read in many levels, and every time you read it, there is more that you discover. It's this Frank Herbert. It's a fantastic writer. His skills as a writer are just amazing. Storytelling, I'm saying, because he was able to write and tell his story, and tell his story at many levels as he's conveying the story. You read it, there is a story, the story is there, but it has more than one meaning. Not many are able to do that. His son, not able to do that. Absolutely not able to do that. He's a terrible, horrible. What he did afterwards. It's even contradicting his father. But anyway, And you see that is also channeled work. So it's a reality. And what is fantastic with Dune is that it gives us an idea of the potential of humanity, what we can be, the technology that we have in our body, that we can bring ourselves to a level of being that is something that we have not explored now. And again, you see there something that is said, it's fantasy, it's not real. Okay, it's not fantasy, it's not real, but it is not that, it's real. And so the when you take the Bene Gesserit and the way they are trained, that is possible because that is real. And bringing our body, our mental capacities, and all of that at that level, absolutely possible. So it's a reality, still interpretation, right? Because we are still interpreting. All of this is human interpretation, human point of view, human experience. But how fascinating is it? Tolkien, it's how fascinating is this? And how much is conveyed there that relates to us, or we can discover ourselves. And in Tolkien, there's this connection, this cohabitation between humans and elves, something that we have lost in our nows now, right? We are not physically cohabitating, uh, coexisting. I don't know, cohabitate. I may be translating it from French, cohabitating, but coexisting in the same moment, right, with the elves and with the fairies. We have lost that through our inability to share our reality. Right, we are already enabled. Many of us are enabled to share the reality with other human beings, so without becoming violent. Here you have a situation where there is that coexistence, even though the coexistence come to an end at the end of the third age. Nevertheless, it's there, and we have a story, and we can see how that is through the interpretation, and then you can go beyond interpretation, and you can see this um, these beings, the elves, these beings that cannot die, exchanging with being that can die. So there you are, and this is it. This is what I wanted to talk about. A different. So this is a different take, a different way of conveying things, of talking about things, but sometimes it's also good to change, a little bit of change, right? What we the way we talk, the way we convey things. All right, so I will be seeing you well again tomorrow. I having the sound bath, so you can join me for that. It's gonna be fun. And I remind my Patreon you can find, and yes, and I remind you of the Madden God, our podcast with Roxy. Check it. It's also in the description, and it's a fun. We have a lot of fun doing that, and we love doing that, and that's essential. So check that too, breakfastwithmax.com. And if you have any inquiry, you can send me a message. You have on my website the possibility of sending me a message, and I can answer if you have any question about the services and all that. Let's give send me a message, and we'll figure it out. All right. Thank you for joining me and spending this time with me and talking about Tolkien. And I love Tolkien and I love these things, so I love talking about it. And you'll see, and because very soon I will do that with Frank Herbert. I'm very, I'd say passionate, but I really love these books because, especially these books, because they really convey so much. They present, there is a lot of there, and channel work. So, yes, thank you and goodbye. I will be seeing you in the next now. Bye bye.